I've been here before, so I've worked here before with Peter Fekete a long time ago, because he used to run a programme with my school, which I'm director of drama, and we used to tour theatre to Hungary. So it's not the first time I've worked here, and our friendship as colleagues goes back a long way. I mean, he was a student at the college many years ago. He's a great facilitator. He's sort of has great ideas and supports creative people extremely well. So working here at the theatre with the teams of people that Peter has set up here is quite exciting, actually. You can see what he's trying to establish by creating a learning environment as well as a professional theatre.
It's interesting because I genuinely didn't have any real preconceptions about Hungarian theatre at all. I've seen one or two Hungarian companies in the UK who've come for festivals and who've come for Shakespeare performances. Actually, I saw a Hungarian company at the Globe Theatre as part of their World Shakespeare season, and was very impressed by them. But I didn't really have any preconceptions at all about Hungarian theatre or Hungarian actors. It's been fascinating for me to experience a different theatre culture from the culture in England. You know, there's an ensemble system here where there's an ensemble of actors attached to the theatre, and then there are some guest actors who are invited into the company for a particular production. One of the good things for me as a director is coming into a team of people who already have a knowledge and a shorthand of working with each other already. So there are already kind of rich relationships, as in any sort of family, you know, good and bad. You know, people like working with each other, or they know they don't, or they have issues. It's a very different way of working. Very interesting for me as a director to experience that difference.
Quiet town, quiet city to have so many theatres, or so much theatre in this sort of, not just the theatre itself, but with the water theatre and the circus tent and the studio. I think it's quite an exceptionally well-provided state theatre, which obviously we don't have much of in the UK. So it's nice. It'll be very interesting to see what the audience is like, because I know you have a very popular sort of audience, and you cater for a large audience, and it'll be very interesting to see how they respond to this particular piece of theatre.
Often when a writer's been dead for maybe 500 years or even only 2 years, we don't know what the writer intended. We only have their text, we only have the story that they were trying to tell. And I think it is an actor's job and a director's job to rediscover that story and to tell it in the most immediate, fresh, dynamic, exciting and revelatory way that you can.
Maybe we have a slightly different approach to Shakespeare, in the sense that we come from the place where he originates, and I think sometimes people treat him with not too much respect, because he was a fantastic theatre maker for his time, and he worked with actors and he created plays for the audience at that particular moment in time. So making Shakespeare contemporary is something that you should always try and do. It's not a historical genre. Lear is about somebody of huge power coming to the end of his reign, his rule, and making a decision, whether it's a sane decision or whether the insanity that follows is because of a course of action, is that he is deciding to give up his power and pass it on to his children. Now, you find what's an equivalent now. Obviously, a king, when Shakespeare wrote it, he wrote about a mythical period of British history, sort of pre-pagan almost environment, where kingdoms and fiefdoms were sort of fought over with knights and etc., etc. You move it into a modern context and you think, what's an equivalent? And it could be sort of industrialists or politicians or mafia. And there's something about all three of those things that seem to suit the dark side of King Lear. And it is it's a very dark play. There's some absolute brutality. It just seemed to be the right sort of environment to work with. We weren't, 100% sure at the very beginning whether we went totally mafia or totally industrialist or totally business, but it sort of ends up being something that merges between those worlds.
I think all work in theatre is about relationships and about trust, and those are very fragile things. You don't earn them, you're not owed it, and it's not something you're given unconditionally. It's a constant process, so you have to be very, very careful. And of course it changes between actor and technician or designer, or you've got to be always managing all of those relationships. So it's an ongoing thing, and I think it would be shallow and insincere for me to say that, even though that I've loved my time working here, and I have, but I'm really impressed by the level of expertise here in the theatre, because everyone seems to me to bring a huge level of commitment and knowledge about what it is that they do, which is really impressive.
I don't know, we use digital projection in this, and we use sort of surround sound, and you use all of the sort of the latest things, but actually it's the live event that's probably the most important thing. And actually, if you didn't, projections take you somewhere in a narrative, but they're unnecessary. To be honest, the actors on the stage, again, you go back to that's what it was, that's what the Globe was about. That was about people talking in front of an audience and doing things to each other. So the stunts then, when they took Gloucester's eyes out, they would have had a pig's eye or something, and they would have thrown it into the audience, and everyone would have screamed and yelled and been horrified by it, and there would have been blood, and there would have been all of these things. The great thing about live performance is seeing people doing these things to each other, sitting close to somebody who is murdering or killing or whatever, and actually watching this on stage as a moment of drama is probably, you can't replace that.
And when I go to the theatre, I want to be disturbed on some level, not on the level of disgusted or, the negative side of disturbed. In a more kind of psychological way, I want to have some preconceived notion about life or the world turned upside down. Because I see so much theatre which is sort of highly polished mediocrity, which is incredibly refined banality, rather than something that's sort of taking a risk. And I just think actually art is about taking risks at the end of the day.